Right, hopefully you've done the homework and now you just need to mark it. So I'm going to breeze through this fairly quickly since it's not on notes. So first of all, I would have written out the x plus 3 twice because you were squaring a binomial, so you cannot distribute that power of 2 over a plus sign. Now I would multiply out x squared plus 3x plus 9. I would do my binomial times my binomial first. Then I would probably add like terms in the bracket first, although I don't have to. And then I'd multiply in my negative 1. Now there are different ways to get to the same answer, but this is the way that I think is the easiest. Okay, now the next question is a fairly similar one, except I'm hoping that now we're starting to see this pattern. When we see exactly the same brackets but different signs, our middle terms will always cancel. So this is x squared plus 5x, that comes from distributing the x, and then minus 5x, so there they cancel, minus 25. So minus 5x minus 25. So now I can see that those are going to cancel, so I actually just get x squared minus 25, and now I can multiply in my minus, so it's minus x squared plus 25. Okay, so I is a very similar concept as well. I'm first going to multiply out my brackets, so I get x squared plus 7x, that's from multiplying in my x, and then minus 1x minus 7 from multiplying in my minus 1. If I collect up like terms, I get x squared plus 6x minus 7, and then I multiply by 4, so 4x squared plus 24x minus 28. So it's fairly similar questions the whole way along. Next one again isn't particularly different. You just have to remember that when you're squaring, you write out a bracket twice. You cannot distribute over a plus sign. So 3, I now multiply in my 2x, so I get 4x squared plus 6x, and then another 6x plus, now careful, it's not 3 plus 3, it's 3 times 3, which is 9. Okay, like terms again, my middle terms are like terms, so I get 4x squared plus 12x plus 9, and then I multiply in my 3, so 12x squared plus 36x plus 9. So these are all fairly similar questions. You should be getting more and more confident. Okay, next one, very, very similar, 4, and this is 4x squared plus 2xy, and then plus another 2xy, notice I wrote that alphabetically, plus y squared. Okay, once again, like terms in the brackets, 4x squared plus 4xy. Remember, when you add like terms, you don't change exponents. And then I distribute to my 4. So 16x squared and 16xy and 4y squared. Okay, and my last one, only slightly more complicated because the factor outside has its own variables. So multiply my, oh, now I see this pattern again. So this is 9x squared, and this will be plus 3xy, and then minus 3xy. So those middle terms are going to cancel, so that makes my life easier. Minus y squared. So indeed, the middle terms cancel, and so I land up with 9x squared minus y squared. And then my last bit of multiplying in is signs, negative, numbers, 3 times 9, x squared times x squared, and then signs, numbers, and variables for when I multiply by the second factor. Okay, so hopefully we're fairly confident with that whole idea of a binomial and then a factor outside. Okay, then the next exercise was the more complicated ones where you had multiple terms, so don't forget to divide into terms. And now I'm going to rewrite my bracket twice, so this is 2x minus 5, 2x minus 5. I can go and distribute in my minus 4x, so minus 4x squared plus 20x. Okay, now I've got a binomial times a binomial, so 4x squared minus 10x, that's from distributing in my 2x. Then distributing in my 5 is another minus 10x and plus 25 from distributing that in. And then I still got my 4x squared plus 20x. And so remember my steps were divide into terms, simplify each term, and now I can add my like terms. So 4x squared plus 4x squared is 8x squared. Notice exponents don't change. Minus 10x plus 20x all cancel each other out, and I get plus 25. So it simplifies down to something quite nice and neat. Okay, let's try a couple more of your homework. Simplify into terms. Now here, both of these I had to write out. So a minus 5 minus. Now don't forget, when there's a minus, once I've multiplied this out, I'm going to need a bracket, because otherwise the minus isn't going to apply to everything. So I get a squared minus 5a, that's from distributing in the a. Then minus 5a plus 25, that's from distributing in the minus 5. Now just be careful, minus and a bracket, because when I multiply this out to get a squared minus 7a plus 49, I need to now go and subtract that entire thing. So that bracket is essential. Now I probably won't bother, I suppose this is minus 10a, I could add those together. I'm not going to bother adding the like terms in the bracket, because it's minus a squared plus 7a minus 49. I could have added those like terms in the bracket first, but I'm going to be adding like terms in the last step anyway, so I was being a bit lazy. Okay, so a squared, take away a squared, disappears. Minus 10a plus 14a is 4a, and 25 take away 49 is minus 24. So it also boils down to something quite nice. Okay, moving on to question C. Question C, there were two terms, and they were quite complicated, these terms, in that you have a constant outside and you're squaring a binomial, and there's a minus there. So that minus is going to mean that I'm going to need a bracket again. So let me just write out my question. Okay, now I start simplifying. My first, I'm going to leave the 2. I get x squared minus xp minus xp. I could have written px. I suppose that would have been alphabetical. There we go. That simply comes from distributing in the x and distributing in the p. Now just be careful here. It's minus and a bracket, because that minus belongs to everything. So x squared minus 3xp, and then minus 2xp plus 6p. Let me just erase my bracket. P squared. Okay, now both of these still need to be simplified. So I multiply in my 2. Now I could simplify like terms already within each bracket, but I'm going to have like terms in the last line anyway. So I'm just going to be lazy, and I'm going to multiply in my positive 2, sorry. So 2p squared. And my last one is minus x squared plus 3xp plus 2xp minus 6p squared. And so finally I have a whole bunch of like terms. I've got 2x squared, take away an x squared, which is x squared. I've got minus 2xp plus 3xp plus 2xp, so I get plus 1xp, and then 2p squared minus 6p squared is minus 4p squared. Now that would again be worth a lot of marks, and a test it might look quite overwhelming, but don't forget to just break it down into terms and slowly chip away at simplifying each term. Okay, our last one is the most complicated, I suppose. If I divide into terms, there's a lot going on here. First of all, this 2x, personally I'd bring to the front. So I'd put in the front and I'd say 2x and 3x minus 5, which means in the next step I'm going to multiply out. Now I have a minus 3, and if I multiply those two together, I have 2x squared minus 3x, erase that, minus 10x plus 15. Where did I get that? Simply by distributing in my x and then multiplying in my negative 5. And my last term is I multiply out my minus 9. So minus 9x plus 45. So I'm not yet ready to add like terms because I still need to do some distribution in the first term. So I distribute in my 2x. And now minus 6x squared plus 9x plus 30x minus 45 minus 9x plus 45. I could have added again these like terms in the bracket first, and I would have got minus 13x times by negative 3 is plus 39x, but I'm going to add like terms in the last step anyway. So what are my like terms? 6x squared, take away 6x squared, well, that's nothing. Minus 10x plus 9x plus 30x minus 9x. Well, my 9x's will cancel, so 9x take away 9x cancels. So I basically get 30 take away 10, which is 20x. And lastly, my constants are minus 45 and plus 45, and so they disappear. So what looked like a fairly complicated question boiled down to a really easy one. Okay, and that's that. That's pretty much all our products that we really need to wrestle with for now. So well done.